afternoon.
Shekhar, shall we call you Yasharth or Shekhar?
So whatever you like. I'm fine with both.
All right. Now your first name is what?
So it means somebody who has wealth and fame. That means.
No. Your first name, Yasharth is your first name, or your both are first names?
I was given that name, but Yasharth goes first, and then Shekhar.
I will address you as Yasharth. Okay.
Yes, sir. More than happy.
So welcome Yasharth to our mock interview today.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us very briefly about yourself, your qualification, experience, your hobbies. Very briefly.
So my name is Yasharth, and I was born in Ayodhya, and I have done my schooling from different districts of Uttar Pradesh, and I completed my 12th from Lamartine College, Lucknow. From then I went to St. Stephen's College to complete my graduation in economics. After completing my graduation, I've been preparing for UPSC, and my hobbies include traveling, watching movies, playing cricket, and I have a fundamental interest in nutrition, health, and gyms. That's great.
So tell me, you are a Stephanian.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, how a Stephanian different from student, a bachelor coming out of some other college?
I think, sir, somebody who has been to Stephens, I can't vouch for other colleges, but I do know that I have come in contact with more different stream of thoughts on one single thing than I think as a student from other university would come from, because I think the atmosphere of my college is very cosmopolitan. Other than that, it's a very liberal atmosphere. So you don't have any, it makes you somebody who is unafraid of expressing himself or herself. The other thing is that the faculty is very good. So the composition of my college is very good, and you come to appreciate nature very much. Apart from that, I think the very vibrant protest culture makes your heart evocative to certain issues which might not ring bells in many people. So that is one thing I think I've learned.
So Yasharth, are you appearing in an interview for the first time? This is your first attempt?
For the UPSC mock interview, sir.
Civil services, yeah.
Yes, this is my second attempt, but this is my first interview.
All right. So you are from Uttar Pradesh.
Yes, sir.
You like traveling. Now, tell me, if you see in India, there are many states. When you think of, somebody asks you which are the main tourism states, in India, which you should go to. Suppose somebody from foreign countries coming, or even within India. So you generally think of Rajasthan, Goa, UP. Uttar Pradesh is never in the itinerary except for Taj Mahal.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, UP is such a large state. Uttarakhand now having been separated. Even today, UP has got lots of tourist destinations. Why people are not visiting places other than Taj when you have so many historical locations, and they are still not, UP is still not considered as a tourist destination despite Varanasi and Ayodhya and all these places. So what do you have to say about it?
So I think the tourist potential of Uttar Pradesh is very huge, because even after the main place being Taj Mahal, we still figure in top 3 places where tourists visit in India. However, there are many reasons why Uttar Pradesh has not been able to develop itself. The first is the security reason. We still have issues with respect to security for women, and that's why a lot of people are not able to travel to so many places. The other issues being infrastructure. So many places that you visit, you will find that the roads are either dug up, or there is not adequate availability of food or hotels. Other than that, sir, as far as institutional infrastructure is concerned, we don't have many bodies who are particularly responsible for promoting tourism. And given that Uttar Pradesh has always been a state of poverty and has been included in the Bimaru states, we did not give much attention to promoting tourism as something which can alleviate poverty. I think in these regards, we've been left behind. Apart from that, I think infrastructure, this awareness amongst people of Uttar Pradesh, because their primary concern is to earn their means of livelihood, has not evolved into something which promotes tourism, because they're primarily concerned with their livelihood rather than traveling, because traveling usually comes when a society moves from a lower income society to a middle class society that promotes your tourism. These are the main reasons why I think it has not been able to develop itself.
Okay. So tell me, you also mentioned that health is your, you like health matters and health subjects. So let's come to COVID.
Yes, sir.
In the first wave, it was center which was handling the entire COVID management.
Yes, sir.
And in the second wave, the center has delegated and decentralized and given to the states.
Yes, sir.
Now, state health is a state subject.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you think that center has now come to the main track and followed the constitution by handing over to the state? So why in the first case in wave 1 did it centralize everything and did not even bother for the fact that health is a state subject?
So I believe that when the first wave came, we did not know much about how this virus is spread. There was a lot of misinformation about the virus. And I believe that when such a state of uncertainty prevails, centralization is a much better approach. So because central government has much better access to resources and to bodies like Indian Council of Medical Research, which can promote much better way of approaching about things. Also, the government decided to invoke the Disaster Management Act, which put the entire machinery under its control. In the second stage, from the learnings of the first stage, we could say that the situation would have been managed, but much better had the power being decentralized. Anyway, the purpose of that centralization in the first stance was to promote a sense of understanding about the virus as well. And in the second stage, I believe that we've come to realize that each individual state with its own resources, with its own individual constraints and capacities and challenges would be in a much better situation to tackle challenges. For example, if I have a COVID situation in my neighborhood, I think the best person or the best authority responsible for dealing with that would be the municipal body, or in that regard, even municipal body is not able to do something. I think the state government would be in a position, because I can't go to central government for every single need. So I think this was a much better approach.
So tell me, in that case, will you advocate for health being brought to the concurrent list?
So I think that I would not advocate bringing it under the concurrent list, because then there comes an element of conflict between the central government and the state government, because anyway coming under the concurrent list actually gives it away to the central government, because central government can in any situation overcome or override anything that the state government does to health sector. I think the best authorities responsible for managing health happens to be the state government with well-functioning municipalities.
But Yasharth, what happened in oxygen management shows that beyond a point, the states were not able to manage things and resources.
Sir, I do think, but I think the major issue was with respect to oxygen, sir, was that we did not learn from what we had experienced last year in September and October when we peaked. There was a demand for oxygen, and we lacked complacency. However, a central authority dictating what amount of oxygen is to be allocated to different states, rather than state being self-reliant or being self-sufficient in production of oxygen, would have been much better situation. Rather than
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Carry on.
So rather than central government dictating, because there is always an element of politics which will come in, and different states will run in different directions as to whether they have received adequate amount of oxygen. It's better that these states are made self-independent about what amount of oxygen to be produced, and I think this would have been much better approach, as far as I think.
So, but you said that state should continue. You agree that the health infrastructure in our country is good enough that the state governments can manage with their resources, and therefore the center should intervene and get the health in the concurrent list, so that there is some responsibility on the central government also to create infrastructure?
So I think the resources of central government are very much stretched in different fields because it has to take into account so many different aspects which even the state governments cannot look after. For example, defense. But even after that, our fiscal deficit is going very high. Even if the central government were to handle the health, it would have to borrow so much amount of money, which is going to put pressure on the interest rates, and that is going to create other set of problems. But I believe that if at all a region around me is suffering in terms of health infrastructure, I think the best authority to deal with this is going to be municipality. But the problem is that in our country, the municipality is not looked after very well. Though they have been given a constitutional existence by the 74th Amendment Act, Constitutional Amendment Act, they're not working efficiently. And that's why we are suffering the problem. I think central government would not be in a position to supply every major infrastructure to every state. It can do so without any doubt, but it would be an inefficient expenditure.
So Yasharth, can you give a recent example of a scheme where the state, the center and the states have jointly, taken up, have coordinated to take up the health issue, to address the health care issue of in the country?
So I think that the Ayushman Bharat happens to be one scheme where the central government implements it, but the central government has passed or has promoted this scheme, while the implementation responsibilities fall on the state governments, because they are much better, because state governments with stronger municipalities are in a much better position to handle. We have example of Kerala in that regard.
Okay, Yasharth, Quad, you have heard about Quad?
Yes, sir.
So what has been the impact of Quad on China?
So I think as to the best of my understanding, it has made China a little more belligerent. It has always been very belligerent, but now it sees coming together of countries having similar thought process on opposing it. And this has made it more belligerent, and it has made it more pressing on certain issues which it considers dear to its geopolitics, like issues of Taiwan, issues of South China Sea, East China Sea, and it sees Quad as threat to its emerging area of influence in South Asia or Southeast Asia.
I pass on Yasharth to Mr. Khanna. He will ask you questions now.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yasharth.
Yes, sir. Yasharth.
Yasharth. What is the meaning of Yasharth?
So it means somebody who has wealth and fame.
Wealth and fame.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, Yasharth. You have done economics from St. Stephen's College.
Yes, sir.
And St. Stephen's College also has been involved in some controversy during last couple of years.
Yes, sir.
So what was this controversy all about?
So the major sir, I was a member of second year student council. So we also discussed this controversy. This was about autonomy being introduced in the college, and it was a proposal of UGC that autonomy should be bringing in. And even the recent national education, new education policy talks about the issue of autonomy, which created a lot of furore. There were so many different camps within college, some who promoted autonomy, some who opposed autonomy. So this was the main issue. Okay. Apart from that, there has been a demand for student union of Stephens be included in Delhi Union Student Union. That is also one aspect.
All right. I want to ask you about farmers' agitation. Farmers' agitation. What do you see the future of farmers' agitation? Where do you see it going?
So I think right now it has hit a slowdown on account of growing pandemic crisis. But I think the much better approach would be for the government to talk to these farmers, because the reforms are nonetheless non-negotiable. I believe that the reforms are very good in the three bills, and these have been the recommendation of many different panels of the parliament who have discussed agrarian reforms, and we've seen that the position of agriculture in this country has been deteriorating for the past few years. And I think a better approach would be, initially it might hurt, any kind of a new liberal reform in the beginning hurts the existing stakeholders, But I believe a much better approach would be to talk to farmers. So I believe that it is going to continue, because even if the pandemic could not disperse the farmers, I think it is very difficult for them to disperse, and they're going to continue their protest. But I think a much educated discussion with the farmers about the benefits of the bill in the long term is going to help us in this matter.
I was reading somewhere that the public opinion also on the farmers bill is fast changing, and more towards the farmer side, especially some newspapers mentioned of the recent results as an indicator of that. How do you take that?
So I think, sir, any reform which is so fundamental to any sector, be it the 1991 reforms of LPG era, they create an element of fear in the minds of existing people who have interest in the system. And given that agricultural sector does not have any incentive to promote to produce more productively, it is going to hurt so many different elements who are part of the entire supply chain. So they are so these elements, they tend to create an element of doubt among the people also about the negatives of the bill. I believe that public perception should be taken into consideration, but I believe that a much better approach would be to talk to farmers, and for the government to prevent the disinformation campaigns being spread about the effects of the bill.
All right, economics is also about statistics and about timely information.
Yes, sir.
Right. So how do you see the role of big data in present day economics and government policies?
So I think it has both positive aspects as well as negative aspects. On the positive aspect, it is going to help the government to predict what is going to come in the future, or what is going to be the choice of the people, or what the populace is going to prefer in the coming few years, because the aggregate data would help them understanding the preferences of the population. On the negative side, this data has been used to exploit the privacy of the people, as we have seen in case of Cambridge Analytica case, because this huge amount of data that is being surveilled by so many international big data firms to promote their own objectives. Right now, even you see when we search anything on Amazon or anything on the Google, we're going to get the ads of the same on Instagram or Facebook, because they are surveilling you. They are surveilling the massive amount of data. So it has both positive as well as negative impact.
As an economics student,
yes, sir.
Where do you see Indian economy going in times of COVID?
So I think right now we are in a phase of a downfall because of increasing mobility restrictions and increased slowdown of economic activities. But I believe that in the coming as soon as the wave ebbs, the second wave of coronavirus comes down, and we enhance our vaccination program, I think we will be in a position to grow very fast, given that if the government brings in another fiscal stimulus package along with promoting different programs which does not let the unemployed go hungry, like Pradhan Mantri and Manrega scheme to promote employment to the people. But I believe that right now we are on a downfall, but we will see a recovery as soon as this wave ebbs.
Let's talk about tourism sector. I heard your discussion also recently on tourism.
Yes, sir.
Pandemic has given rise to e-tourism. Now people, general opinion appearing in various international newspapers is,
yes, sir,
people prefer to see their own country, and e-tourism is catching up. That is, you visit various sites through your computer or TV.
Yes, sir.
So do you think that tourism industry is going to take a big beating due to COVID in coming times?
So I think when we talk in terms of economic recovery, I'm digressing a little. We talk in terms of K-shaped growth, wherein every sector of the economy is going to grow differently. And I think the best example of that happens to be tourism sector, because even after all the mobility restrictions are removed, I think tourism sector is going to take a big hit in terms of, because in this you actually need to go to different places to employ so many people. So this is going to result in loss of tourism revenue to the government, and loss of employment opportunities for so many of the lowest skilled or semi skilled workers who are helping these tourists in different parts of the country. Sir, e-tourism is a very good opportunity. I believe that even if it might promote tourist potential for certain places, it has this added advantage of promoting you to go to certain places. For example, recently the Kerala government, to promote tourism, they decided to engage so many vloggers who make videos of these tourist places in this program called My First Trip. This is the name of the program, in which they invited all these travel bloggers from different parts of the country to promote the tourist potential of Kerala, because so many people were not going to Kerala on account of two floods in 2 consecutive years, and then other issues like COVID. So I think it may not be able to replace the actual tourism, but it has the potential to promote tourism.
Okay, UP and Delhi. We have stayed in both the states.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you were to compare health, education, and pollution, three problems between the two states, how
Yes.
would you compare?
So in terms of health infrastructure, I think Delhi has one of the best health infrastructure in the country, though it is burdened right now because of increasing COVID cases. The problem with respect to health infrastructure of UP is that it is it is uncared for, because the spending on health infrastructure happens to be a very small percentage. I think it is around less than 2% in Uttar Pradesh. In terms of education, I think again, Delhi scores much better than Uttar Pradesh because of so many different universities, so many different colleges, and the conventional lack of support for the same in Uttar Pradesh. However, in terms of pollution, I think Uttar Pradesh is in a much better position. I think, leaving the exception of Ghaziabad, because it still figures badly as compared to Delhi in terms of particulate matter 2.5 or particulate matter 10 levels. I think if we leave Ghaziabad, I think almost all the major cities of Uttar Pradesh or all the other rural areas have much better air quality as we compare it to Delhi.
Okay, last question before I pass on to my friend.
Yes, sir.
UP is a very big state.
Yes, sir.
Do you think it is time for us to think of bifurcation or more than bifurcation, converting state into 4 states?
So I think the idea is very suitable. I believe that the idea is very good, given that the empirical experience that we had with Uttarakhand, which has seen a tremendous development, especially after partition, especially after division. My apologies. The problem is that in all the different four regions that we usually talk in terms of division of Uttar Pradesh, there is not a very major demand for division. Barring in the region of Bundelkhand, I think there is not a very strong demand for division of Uttar Pradesh. So that is going to create problem with public perception. But I think every region of Uttar Pradesh has its own set of problems, which would be looked much better if we divide it into 4 states. For example, Bundelkhand has its problem with water scarcity, while Western UP does not have this problem at all. So I think in this situation, we will be in a much better position to tackle problems individually. So idea is very good, but I think it won't find much support on the ground.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Over to you, Sumesh.
Okay, good afternoon, Yasharth.
Yes, sir.
Okay, why you took geography as your option subject?
So the reasons were primarily material, because I thought I would be able to score geography much better. Also, traveling is my hobby, and mapping is one very essential part of geography. So I could use all Google Maps or Google places, and I could, this became a hobby for me of sorts. So I did not find it difficult to study. On the other hand, I have realized that economics is a really difficult subject. If I took it to optional, I will have to spend a lot of time, and that would have taken my attention away from GS. So that is one main reason.
Okay, historically and geographically, do Himalayas belong to India?
So geographically, it lies on Indo-Sangpo. It lies south of Indo-Sangpo Suture Zone, which happens to have historically divided India and China. So we can say that it lies on the side of India, because for a very long period of time, Tibet had been an area of influence for India also. So yes, I can say that historically and geographically now they are divided into different countries. A small portion of it lie in China, but I think majorly geographically and historically they have been part of Indian consciousness.
Okay. Okay. Tell me, why do North Indians know very little about the geography of South India?
So I think this comes from what is more important to them, to North Indians. You see, North India has this problem of hunger, poverty, underdevelopment. So somebody who is concerned about his stomach doesn't usually care about anything else. While on the other hand, South Indian people being more educated, being more satisfied with their hunger needs or poverty or the absence of poverty existing in South India has enabled them to pursue other interesting adventures, which is, for example, education. And with education comes a development of interest in certain things. I think that has led them to understand North India much better as compared to North Indians understanding South Indians geography very well.
Okay, let me ask you one question on economics background.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what do you mean by recession, and what is the current status of recession in India? When do you think that we will overcome recession, and when is the last time India suffered from recession?
So, technically speaking, in terms of economics, recession is when the GDP of a country falls, not the rate, but the actual fall in the GDP happens for 2 consecutive quarters. That is, for 6 months, there is a fall in GDP. We say that the country is in recession. So, I think the second question was what is the present situation?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
right now, we had experienced a recession last year because of the COVID pandemic, because when we saw our output falling for 2 consecutive quarters. However, after that, we saw a massive recovery because of the decline in the cases. However, right now, we are not in a phase of recession, but the growth rate of our output is falling because of increasing mobility restrictions. And in the future, I see that since I can only imagine that the growth of the cases right now is plateauing. So in the coming future, I think we will be seeing that more of the lockdowns are not imposed, as a result of which economic activity will continue. And in the next 2-3 months, we're going to see an economic recovery. And also different bodies like Moody's or Standards of Poor or Fitch or Crisil though they have reduced the growth rate of Indian economy in the coming quarters, but it still stays in the positive territory. So which means that we are not going to see a further recession in the future. That's my assessment.
Yeah, one more part is left. Where is the last time we saw recession? Yeah, maybe 10 years back or 20 years back. When was the last time you can recall?
So when was the last time we saw recession? I think I'm not sure about it, sir. I think if at all we've seen recession, I think in the midst of great financial crisis of 2008.
Okay, so India was not suffering from recession that point of time.
India was not. Okay, so I'm mistaken.
Okay, one last question from my side. Delhi government said that state government hospitals and few private hospitals,
yes, sir,
will be reserved only for residents of Delhi.
Yes, sir.
Do you support this reason?
So I do not support this reason.
Yes. Why so?
So because if Delhi wants to reserve its hospitals for only Delhi residents, then they should stop absolutely everything that the migrants coming from different parts of the country do for Delhi, because migrants are a very essential part of development of Delhi, because they work in either if there is a development of regional RRTS system in Delhi, or there is a development of metro in Delhi, or there is development of so many different infrastructure of roads being built or infrastructure of hospitals being built. This is all being done by so many migrants who are coming from so different parts of the country. And Delhi is not just one single city like Lucknow or Hyderabad or any other capital city of a state. It is also the capital of a country, so that every citizen who is coming there for every single purpose has a right over it. For example, I can take my case. I reside in Ghaziabad, but for the vaccination purpose, I went to Delhi, because I know that if something is not available in my district, it will be better available in the national capital territory. So I believe that everyone has equal right over Delhi as far as every aspect is concerned. My education is in Delhi, so I think every person contributes to Delhi in one way or the other. So it has the right to enjoy every facility that Delhi offers.
Okay, Yasharth, I pass on to Vinod, sir.
Yasharth, 2 quick questions.
Yes, sir.
There is a tussle and standoff between the center and Supreme Court on the policy for vaccine. You must have heard.
Yes, sir.
So I am trying to hit at the root issue. Should the courts, and has Constitution mandated to the courts to make a judicial review of the policies, especially when there is no legality involved. What are your views about it?
So I think what the policy of vaccine distribution should be is the prerogative of the government of India. And as this is my personal opinion, I don't think so the Supreme Court should intervene in this, because this sets a wrong precedent for the future Supreme Court judges to intervene in the matters of policy. Also, this also provides some sort of support for the government to intervene in the functioning of Supreme Court in one way or the other. This can be used as an excuse by the government. So I think both are, though with the Menka Gandhi case, the Supreme Court has changed the definition of Article 21, and it says that it can go into the wisdom of decision-making process. But I think only when the element of wrongdoing is involved, I think Supreme Court should enter into the aspects of executive decision making. Beyond that, I think both of them are separate fields and should stay separately.
What do you mean by wrongdoing? You think that a soundness or wisdom of the government can also be challenged in the Supreme Court?
So I think after the Menka Gandhi case, Supreme Court expanded the definition of Article 21, and yes, it can. I think it can be done on the basis of wisdom of any decision-making process. But I think what the policy should be on procurement of vaccines by the states, or whether it should be priced or not, I think it is solely an executive decision-making process, and I think Supreme Court should not involve in this, because it gives impetus to other high courts, or it sets up wrong precedents for future judgments.
Okay. Tell me, these days the words curfew, lockdown, now neither curfew nor lockdown is mentioned in any statute or act or code. So where have these come from?
So I do not know about that. I think probably they would have come from Code of Civil Procedure or Code of Criminal Procedure. Beyond that, I do not have any knowledge about the usage of these words.
No, but you have heard of Section 144.
Yes, sir, I have heard of it. It talks about imposing curfew, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. So, Yasharth, we have asked you quite a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Anything you would want us to ask you, any subject which we may have left out, or anything which you may want, some favorite topic or subject?
So I don't know, sir, about the topic. You can ask me whatever you want.
All right. So thank you, Yasharth.
Okay, Yasharth, you have seen the number of questions and the spectrum.
Yes, sir, it's a very wide.
How do you rate yourself in various replies that you attempted?
Sir, I would say it was average. I wouldn't call it very bad, but I would say it was somewhere around average.
All right, there is always scope for improvement.
Yes, sir. There's
so
always.
that is a good thing that you said, because otherwise one becomes complacent.
Yes, sir. Very much.
So there is always scope for improvement, and in your case, at least to the extent that I asked you, from farmers' laws to pandemic to Indian economy to bifurcation or more of the states, e-tourism, you attempted all the questions to the point. You attempted all the questions very logically.
Thanks.
Probably in some cases replies were a little longer. So if you can try and condense the same replies, content was there. These were very intelligent replies, but why do you stop the members from asking more questions? You know, if you are precise to the point, then you get an opportunity to face one or two additional questions, which can go to your advantage.
So yes, this is one thing, sir. I realized while I answered all the questions, I realized that I was going a little in much more detail.
So it happens under two circumstances. Either you know too much or you don't know much. Under both these conditions, one tends to reply more. So can you hear me?
Sir, I think my host is asking me to restart the video for some reason. I don't know. Is there a problem?
Oh, no, it's all right. I'll just conclude my remarks saying that it's up to you now. Your test is to say the same thing
Yes, sir.
in lesser time.
I'll
You can
practice.
always practice. And as far as the content and as far as the presentation, because you have been tested for your knowledge, that is not the point. So point is how you tackle. You were confident, you were smiling, you addressed all the questions head on, and you were able to reach to the crux of the problem. So I am glad at your attempt. E-tourism, I liked your reply.
Okay, sir.
So just keep it up, and I think practice little more. Think of bullet points, think of condensing maybe by 20-30 seconds.
Okay, sir. Sure.
If that helps, otherwise you are doing fine.
Sir, am I visible?
No, you are not visible.
So
You are audible.
Can I reconnect?
Yeah, please.
Okay, sir. Just 1 second. I'll reconnect.
Yes, we can see you now.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Over
sir.
to you, Vinod sir.
Okay. Yasharth,
Yes,
you
sir.
perform very well.
Thank you, sir.
And let me tell you, when we saw your performance, I saw you particularly in the light of being number one, a very young boy of 23 years,
Thank you, sir.
not having much experience of the world and of job also. And you are also just a graduate. You have not done your post-graduation. Now, from the eyes of the board, I would say that you stand a very good chance of scoring more than a person who has exhibited a identical performance like yours, but he will get few marks lesser than you, because the board has a inbuilt, perception and policy that the younger people have to be, if they are good, have to be brought up more than those who have, you understand. Now, which means it puts some added pressure on you, but at the same time, the board will give you some discount of your being less experienced because of your age and not because of your knowledge. But when you see that the person who is so young is able to field a large number of questions,
Yes, sir.
very well and very confidently,
Yes, sir.
then of course it is an ideal situation. So I can say that you are in a very ideal situation, since you are good in your knowledge, you have done very well, and you can field a vast subject, questions from vast subject covering a very big span, even content wise. So you stand a much better chance than others in scoring better in the interview.
Thank you, sir.
Having said this, there are few things which basically I would point out.
Yes, sir.
To improve you further.
This is more essential, sir.
Yes. Firstly, that you, as Mr. Khanna has also mentioned, I also noted,
yes, sir,
that your answers have to be precise and shorter.
Yes, sir.
And it was not in one case, it was in most of the cases. And number two, when Mr. Khanna mentioned that it could be because you know too much or too less, it was more because probably you knew too much. But always remember,
sir,
that even if you know too much and you make lengthier answers, there are two possibilities. One, Mr. Khanna has also mentioned, you lose a chance to have more questions being asked. Number two, when you answer very long, you tend to make mistakes. So the thrust that you are able to put with crisp and precise answers, that loses steam gradually as you keep lengthening your answer.
Okay, sir.
So the lesson to you is that you concise and limit your answer to the answer to the best words that you can use in terms of content.
Yes, sir. I'll practice that. I'll practice that.
Yeah, you can mention later on. You don't have to respond immediately. So number two that I noted, and you should also note it at your level, is that your content has to be a bit more refined.
Okay, sir.
I found that you were to the point, but again it was the result of making your answer too lengthy. You at times covered something which was not relevant.
Okay, sir.
You kept on going and going, on and on, which lost relevance. So the punch and the refined, the content was no longer refined. So you need to be intent, just like in the main exam, you are asked a question with 120 words, with 100 words,
Yes, sir.
with 160 words. So the thumb rule is that you pour your knowledge in those words. So you have to do a similar thing here, that when you are asked a question, you must pour everything in the shortest possible answer, and most important things first and less important things later. Thirdly, you are speaking a bit too fast.
Okay, sir.
I would not like to suggest that you correct yourself, because it is up to you. If you are habitual of speaking at this speed, it may be difficult for you to lessen your pace, and maybe in that case your performance may be not as good as it was in this situation. So I leave it to you. The drawback of speaking too fast are, number one, that one is not able to hear exactly what you have said.
Yes, sir.
And there are many words which are missed, which is not good.
Okay,
Number two, when you speak too fast, and as I saw, you are speaking and you can't help. You are young, you have come out of the college very recently, so you have that tinge in you. So you have to, when you speak, you were speaking, very fast in that typical Stephanian mode. I'm not being critical. It is a very good thing. I have also studied in Delhi University, across your college. Well, I did my MBA from FMS. But my point basically is that when you are appearing in the interview, it's a different setup.
Okay.
It is not as informal as it is like talking to a group of people or somebody who you know. So my point is that you can consider this suggestion to speak, even if you speak as fast, make your words very clear. And secondly, when you speak like this, and you speak very fast, you pick up word from here and there in order to keep that pace. And if you're not able to pick up the right word, you may choose a wrong word, which may either be considered to be a very informal word which is being used, or maybe you may pick up an incorrect word which may give a different perception and different meaning. So this is another thing which I think if you improve, you will. And last point, you have been very abrupt in making your choices and stands. I mean, I would say not so blunt, but very candid, very frank. Now, in bureaucracy, we don't expect a sudden answer. For example, you were asked about Delhi. Your answer was, before the question could complete, you said, no, sir, I don't agree. Now, this agree and not agree are the words which you should maybe if you should use it very diplomatically towards the end. You should analyze the issue first. Why Delhi should take people from outside? Why people are objecting to people coming to Delhi with low and less infrastructure? So analyze both. You pass your judgment right in the beginning. And it is not something which is, some crime or something, about which you are so sure, no, this cannot be correct, this is illegal. That means the impression that the board will get is you are not subject to any innovative or any thoughts and new ideas. Same thing you reflected when I asked you about the concurrent list and state list. Now you should also know that there is a provision in the constitution about this, that if there is a spread of infection from one state to the other, this particular activity is mentioned in the concurrent list of the constitution or 7th schedule. Now, when the question is asked state and concurrent, there has been some debate on it. So you should also use the same format of debate. Yes, sir, there have been some views about this, and then you give your views. So you should not be abrupt, no, sir, it should not be concurrent. Now that should be your last thing. If you're asked again, very, putting you, pushing you to the wall and say, no, say yes or no, this or that, then of course you can say, no, sir, then I will go for this. So I hope I've been able to make you understand some of the observations which I made, and this is only for your better performance in the main interview. We have I'll just finish in a minute. We have a system of giving marks to all the candidates who come for the mock interview. We have rated you very high, 63 to 64% based on your performance. But all that I have mentioned to you is because I think that I have lots of hope from you, as I had mentioned earlier, for the reason, if you do better than what you have done today, which I'm sure you would, you will certainly reach the 70% level, which we in this panel have given to some people. That is one. And I'm sure that if you have done your main exams well, then with good interview marks, you should be able to get in. Now, if you have any comments or any questions, you are free to ask.
Sir, this is regarding the last thing that you mentioned about answering questions when you have to give your opinion on certain things. So, sir, if the question is about for example, the question that sir asked about, do the patients outside of Delhi should be allowed to get admission in the Delhi hospitals? So if I don't take a very strong stand, would that not mean that I am trying to evade the situation very diplomatically? Wouldn't
No, in fact, let me tell you, now that you have asked us this specific question, I'll take another half a minute. You see, your answer was not good. Your answer was not good. You shifted from Delhi to being the capital city that it should allow. You mentioned it is not a city like Lucknow. That means you were of the view that Lucknow में किसी और दूसरे को हम नहीं आने देंगे. दिल्ली तो national capital है. दिल्ली में तो सब आएंगे. Okay, and you kept harping on migrants. You should hit at the main thing, that you have a freedom of movement. You have the right to go anywhere. You have right to profession. You have right to avail services.
Yes, very. That was a very valid point. That should have been my answer.
You raised a very impertinent, very petty issue, that migrants, how would they? This is the issue of the unity and integrity of the country.
Yes, sir.
If all the states take this stand that you do this, then what would it mean? It means that we are happy with our own states.
Yes, sir. Yes,
you don't come to me, I don't come to you. And
yes,
is it not reciprocal? Today, yes, if Delhi refuses, now Delhi is asking for oxygen from everywhere with folded hands.
Yes,
so,
sir.
You get my point?
Yes.
So can Delhi not be dependent on the other state?
Yes, sir.
So it is a larger issue, not a small issue of migrants coming and going to Max Hospital of Delhi and taking services. So you get my point?
Yes, I get it. Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Apart from that, no. But the insights were I'll take into account the next time if I'll give an interview. I'll take into account those things.
So
Thank
all
you.
the best, Yasharth. You will
Thank you,
study
sir.
too well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
All
sir.
the best. All the best.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you, sir.